and welcome to another episode here for the Funky Pod, Mindful Media and Communication. And this episode is a special episode for me, personally, just because it's been on my mind for a long time. So if you follow the podcast, you know that I'm a sports fan, right? I'm into like lots of different kinds of sport. It be volleyball. I do follow football too. I'm very much into fighting, like Muay Thai, all things martial arts, actually. And so I listen to lots of podcasts in that area too, right, in that realm. And what really annoys me in all kinds of sports is that basically every big podcast, every big show on YouTube is sponsored or owned by a gambling website. That could be whatever. That might be DraftKings. That might be whatever other, now it's all slipping my, whatever other gambling app / site is out. The Underdog is like one of that sponsors all the NBA channels right now, right? And so I'm not necessarily just hating on the business itself a little bit, but I just find it very interesting and a little bit concerning that gambling is just in the mainstream. It's normal. Everyone's like, yeah, sure, of course I gamble. And the thing is that even people like with big podcasts who always try to act like their moral compass is so intact, they do only the right thing, they only talk about the right things, they don't have a hidden agenda or anything, even they are selling out being sponsored by their good friends over there at DraftKings. Ariel Helwani, for example, on the MMA Hour. Luke Thomas, Brian Campbell, also MMA content creators / boxing journalists, also now on the DraftKings network and so on. So, and I'm of course happy that they get the money so that they can keep creating content. Great, good for you. But do you have to sell your soul to a gambling site, which of course, as we know, always affects the people that can afford it the most, right? It's like those people looking for like the quick money fix, like, oh God, I'm lacking money. Maybe I get lucky this time. I watched so many fights. I watched so many football games. Let me place a bet here or there. And maybe I'm going to win more money. And then all my sorrows are gone for a month or so. And so why am I so into that? I think it's also because I see it a lot. So I live in Thailand, as you might know if you follow the podcast, and gambling is not allowed here by law. That doesn't mean people don't gamble. People gamble a lot. Be it like in person at Muay Thai fights, for example, be it online, okay? I see lots of my Muay Thai coaches, for example, who don't earn that much, okay? A Muay Thai coach doesn't, in a normal average gym here, does not get rich doing Muay Thai coaching, for example. And I see them betting on like random football games all the time. And it just breaks my heart that they feel the need to use the little money they make to try to make a little more by gambling on like a third division German football game, for example. Or like the other day they were gambling on, I think, Levante FC, like a second tier Spanish game or something like that, right? So they don't even know much about it. They just look at the stats, they're like, okay, I think that team is going to win, and then they gamble on that. So that's just a bit sad, okay? And I think the problem here lies within the media space. And so I try to explain a little bit like how gambling now became so accepted and how like the gambling companies really did a good job from their point of view, utilizing trending media formats, for example, to be like present themselves in a different light, okay? Last thing on this before I explain the theories, when I was still working in like marketing agencies and so on, in Europe, I had a few job offers from gambling sites back then. And back then, all those big gambling websites, like online poker and whatnot, all those things, they were all like on either Cyprus or Malta in Europe. That already tells you a lot. If the headquarters is there, I never accepted those job offers. Maybe I should have, and then I would have been better off now and would live by the beach. But just to let you know, like how like it always was like this little bit shady, and now all of a sudden it's like super mainstream. So how did this happen? Okay, let's dive into this flashy, high stakes world of like gambling apps, websites, and so on. And like I said, it was confined to be like shady, like on Cyprus and Malta, and like shady backrooms and just in gambling, right? And those like smoky casinos and stuff. And now gambling has gone mainstream. It's infiltrating your smartphones on every move you make, and it's in every living room on the TV, sponsored by this, sponsored by that, right? So you got to look a little bit critically at the phenomenon that is gambling right now through, like I said, the lens of media and communication studies to understand how did this happen? What does it mean for society even? And yeah, let's roll the dice on that and figure out where is it going to go. Okay, so in the first theory, I want to revert back to our old friend when it comes to media studies, Marshall McLuhan, who was a proponent of the media ecology. As you know by now, I mentioned in the last podcast too, the media ecology theory. Okay, media ecology, one more time, posits that the medium through which content is delivered, the medium through which content is delivered shapes how the content is perceived and affects society. Okay? So the rise of online gambling sites and apps has transformed like gambling from this sporadic activity to like this constant possibility at your fingertips, right? So because now you have so many gambling apps. Gambling apps. Say it again, gambling apps. Okay, you've got so many gambling apps at your fingertips. Yeah, so gambling is nothing where you have to approach someone, a bookie or anything anymore. You have it on your fingertips. So it's from the sporadic, like, this feels a bit shady, to like, hey, look, it's a flashy looking app that gives me like $100 credit if I sign up, for example. That's so cool. Yeah, so it completely shifted the perception here. And then, of course, hand in hand with what I just said, the convenience, right? The convenience of like a digital platform means that you can do it 24/7, anywhere, anytime, obviously. Anyone who's got a smartphone can place a bet, right, at any time. You can probably sign in with your Google Pay or your Apple Pay account. You don't even have to like give your credit card anymore if you don't have one. I mean, you have one for Google Play, but you know what I mean. It's so easy. Just click. You don't have to enter anything. You don't have to give cash. You just click, connect, sure, yes, and then get like a nice sound that triggers your dopamine system, like, ding. You're like, oh yeah, hey, cool, hey, I placed my first bet, so cool, I hope they're gonna win. Right? So this blurs the lines between like casual entertainment and the compulsive behavior, because once you're in there, you gotta keep going. Right? So it's about the ubiquity of those platforms that raise a question about like their impact on, I think, gambling addiction, for example. Right? And hand in hand with that, gambling addiction then might lead to financial instability. Those constant notifications you get on your phone, right? They increase the urge to check it, right? So this easy access, or your push notification from your gambling app. Hey, today, Mavericks versus Timberwolves. Blah, blah, place a bet now. You're like, oh yeah, sure. Okay, so that increases the urge to participate, and that might lead to financial troubles, obviously. Okay. Now the question also is like, how much are the programs that advertise those apps to blame? Because like, especially like American podcasts, right? I know America, it's like, in the US, it's like all about like making money first, economy first, and everything else second, privacy and safety and whatever. But and fair enough. I mean, land of the free, whatever. The thing is though, like how much do we have to talk about the programs that advertise that, right? Like, so if I watch like an MMA podcast, for example, and they're telling me like, hey, we're sponsored by DraftKings, our good friends over there. Download them now. Code Helvani for whatever, $100 free sign-up credit or whatever that might be. And then at the very end, it's like this quick note, like if you have gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLING for. They know it's a problem. They just don't care, right? So how much do we have to blame the program? Or do we say, well, the advertiser pays the most, so whatever, right? You got to look after yourself first. I think that's a big question there to ask. Also, shows like Helvani, I stick with this because I'm into MMA, but there are others, of course, like at Underdog and lots of NBA content, for example. I think Ball Nation does like those IG videos, for example, and there are a few other YouTube channels that are very good right now, like Hoop AM or something that I watch a lot. It's also sponsored by Underdog, and it's always like in between the video, like, hey, by the way, this is brought to you by Underdog. If you do use Underdog now and you get this sign up bonus and blah blah blah. Right. So how much do we blame those creators for reeling us in? Like the MMA Hour podcast has like a whole segment dedicated to like just gambling. Like how cool is gambling? And it's so much nicer to gamble on something because it increases like how you watch a game and how you watch a fight because you're more involved. They make it sound so cool. Is gambling really that cool? Is the question. Should it be that cool? Is the question. And hand in hand with that, right, making it sound cool like in different media channels, goes the cultivation theory that we also discussed before many a times, right? So cultivation theory, as we talked about before, developed by Mr. Gärtner, the researcher, the theorist, and it examines how long-term exposure to media content shapes the viewer's perception of reality. Okay, so films, TV shows, they have long, like, glamorized gambling, right? And now, of course, YouTube channels, IG videos, and so on, they jump in on that. Okay, so they portray the gambling as like this thrilling, high-stakes endeavor that's associated with like wealth, maybe sophistication, like a James Bond movie, but mostly with like wealth and with quick money and with fun, right? That's how it looks like on social media these days. And so as gambling apps become more mainstream, it is this, the glamorous portrayal, but also like this quick fun with friends portrayal in social media contributes to this normalization of gambling. Like everyone's gambling, they're gambling, they're gambling. The guys on the podcast are gambling. Of course we're gambling. Everybody's gambling. Oprah's gambling. There was a joke. Oprah, don't sue me. So viewers, in this case, especially, of course, younger audiences may develop this good perception of gambling as like a harmless or even like as a desirable activity, like ignoring like potential risks and consequences that might come with it. Yeah, if you look at movies, you have like Casino Royale. Casino Royale. That's hard for a German somehow. Casino Royale. Oceans 11, 12, 13, 27. But it looks like exciting. But we know that that's the movie, right? Still, like if you go to a casino, you're like, oh, it's a casino, so cool. But okay. But those gambling apps take a different approach. They take the approach of like, hey, we're cool, we're fun, do it with friends. It's just $20. Come on, let's just have some fun and be more involved. It's a bit of a different approach there that makes it look like much easier. And it's, again, a gamification process, right? You have the app on your phone, notifications, like, yeah, place more others, place this bet. Do you want to place the same bet or do you go against them? Gamification is a huge aspect in this regard. And I think even a younger audience who's used to gamified content to participate in the gamified everything, gamified life, so to speak, if you will, they might fall for that even more. And I think that's a big problem. And so that's the cultivation theory. And as you know, when we talk cultivation, we also have to talk framing theory. We do this a lot in combination on this podcast, right? And I think in this regard, when it comes to gambling, I think framing is very important, right? We know that Erving Goffman came up with the framing theory way back, and now it's everywhere when we consume media. And the framing theory, as we also know, explores like how media, podcasts, YouTube videos, TV, whatever, how media frames influence audience interpretation of events and issues. Okay, so that's the idea. So the framing of gambling, and if you watch the video, I make like this frame with my hands. If not, I just told you. So the framing of gambling in the media often like highlights the positive things, of course, the excitement, potential rewards, while downplaying the risks of being addicted, losing lots of money, right? So the frame is always on the positive things. Like I said earlier, for example, on this MMA podcast, they're like, hey, we have the gambling corner, so to speak. Gambling is so much fun. Let's add something. Let's add some stakes. Then you're going to be more involved in the weekend. No. Yeah, they make it sound cool, fun. So that's the frame they put it in. While on the other side, the downsides, addiction, losing money and whatnot, it's not in the frame. It's only the fun part that's in the frame. Okay, that's the framing theory. So then ads for gambling apps, they feature like the big wins, the happy faces, the even luxurious lifestyle. They reinforce positive connotations. Like so, when you think gambling, you think money. Yeah. However, like critical frames that highlight addiction, financial ruin, the predatory nature of some gambling practices, less prevalent, obviously, right? Which leads to an imbalanced understanding of the activity of gambling itself. Yeah, so, for example, like ads for, let's make it obvious, ads for online casinos often show like winners. They never depict anyone losing money. That's the easy example, but that's what we know. But those gambling apps like, hey, bet on like Luka Doncic hitting like more than 5 threes next game, for example, right? Of course, no one's getting broke from just one fun bet. Hey, bet on Derrick Lewis taking off his shorts after the next UFC fight, for example. Right? Of course, no one's getting financially ruined from one bet on Derrick Lewis. But if you do this on the app all the time, and then the podcast talks about it all the time, that YouTube video talks about it all the time, eventually you do it again and again and again and again. And that could lead to problems. And that's the gamification process as well. And once you're used to something, you keep doing it. Even if it's not the best thing. We all have vices. Why are we doing those vices? Because we're used to them. We know it's not good. We keep doing it. If you keep gambling, even though you know it's not good, and even if you might not be able to afford it, that's a problem. Okay? And this leads me to the next theory. We talked about this also a few weeks ago, but not that many a time, so I'm going to slow it down a little bit now. It's the narrative transportation theory, okay? Narrative transportation theory. Talks all about like immersion and engagement from a media point of view. So the narrative transportation theory suggests that individuals who become absorbed in like a narrative are more likely to be influenced by that narrative that they're really absorbed with. Let me explain. So gambling apps and websites often use like very engaging, immersive experiences to attract and to retain users. Yes, so like elements such as like interactive games, live betting, personalized bets, personalized content, group betting, for example, us versus them, and so on. These platforms create like very compelling narratives that draw users in and making them more likely to participate and potentially to spend more money, of course. Yeah, they're like casino example again, like live dealer games, for example. They replicate those experiences of like a real casino, making the online experience like more real. But again, my main issue lies not with that, because you know what you're doing, at least. It lies more with like those gambling apps that create like group betting and like us versus them, and they send you those push notifications to really like reel you in and make you feel like that's my lifestyle right now. Okay, so this can become really, really, really addictive. And yeah, once you're absorbed in this narrative, right, it's hard to get out of it because that's part of your life, part of who you are, basically. And the last theory is also like one that we talked about a lot. So you see, and it's not that I'm running out of theories, by the way. There are so many more, of course, but I'm using like the common theories right now to just showcase how, I want to say easily, the gambling industry manipulates the media or uses the media to manipulate us. Okay? The last one, the one that we talk about in, I think, almost every podcast episode because it's just about everywhere, use and gratification. We talked about this 1,000 times. One more time. Okay? Use and gratification theory means that individuals that choose specific media to fulfill their needs. So now why do individuals choose gambling apps on which needs it is for fulfilling, right? So people may turn to those apps for entertainment, because you see the live scores when you gamble on something. It's usually a live score tracker, live stats, and so on, right? For excitement, of course, like, oh my God, I play something. Oh, me and my friends are betting. Social interaction, because you might do it with your friends. Or maybe even as a way to escape from your daily stress. And I understand it, because you have so much stress with your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever. At work, everyone's just stressing you out. And so if you gamble, you have something to focus on, to take your mind off thinking about all the other stress. I do understand that. And that's a reason why we're turning for or towards certain media, in this case, just towards, and I'm going to say it, bad ones. gambling. It would be better if you would focus on something else, obviously. So if you understand these motivations, and understanding these motivations is I think, very important for addressing like a broader like societal implications of like mainstream gambling, I think. Because, of course, these apps can provide like short-term gratification, right? With all those things that I just said right now. They can also lead to like long-term negative consequences. So in the moment, you're like all excited, but in the long term, you lost money. You're taking money out of your pocket. Off your table. If you have kids, a wife, a husband, whatever, pets you have to care of, this short-term gratification can have long-lasting negative consequences. Yeah, it could also be like leading to addiction. If you hit like this dopamine hit, that's not good grammar. If you chasing this dopamine hit, right? The sound like ding, you just placed a bet, let's go. If you're chasing this and you keep chasing it, you keep doing it again, and first you do it every 2 weeks for like a UFC fight, for example, or for a football match. Then you do it every week. Then there's no football match this week. You find one. There's no Premier League. There is something in the Argentinian first league, second league, maybe even. There's a German third league match. I'm going to bet on that. You see, and then you keep doing this, and then you're in it, and it's so hard to get out of it. Okay, so the social aspect of like live betting and this interactivity, like reeling you in, can make it way harder for users to disconnect, and of course increases, like I just said, the risk of addiction. You might have seen me like rather, I don't know how to call that, not angry, but rather almost angry when I talk about this topic, because it really bothers me. Because like I said in the intro, it's of course always the ones that can't afford it that get caught up in it, right? So to bring this all together before I get really, really upset, this mainstreaming of gambling apps and websites represents like a very significant shift in how gambling is perceived and engaged within society, right? It used to be banned in many countries. Now it's not banned in many countries anymore. So by applying those media theories that we just discussed, we can understand the implications of this, I want to call it a trend, because it's everywhere right now. So from the seductive allure like presented in media to the immersive experience, right, offered by those digital platforms, apps, and so on, gambling did a good job repackaging itself as like an accessible and like appealing activity, unfortunately. And that's why I think it's essential to actually recognize the potential risks and, well, develop strategies to mitigate them. And the question is, what do we do? How do we mitigate those risks? Besides just, and I hate this word, raising awareness, increasing media literacy, what else is there to do? Because again, they're everywhere. Let me know in the comments, or let me know via email, funklepod@gmail.com, @funklepod on social media. How do we stop this annoying trend of gambling being everywhere? I hope you did learn at least something here. I hope instead of being addicted to gambling apps, you're addicted to this podcast, because there's more for you. If you want more, like, share, subscribe, leave a review in whatever app you're listening to. That really helps with the algo and reaching more people. Very much appreciated. Take care, stay safe. Don't place any bets. Follow this podcast. Until then, stay safe, take care.